Hey guys, how you doing? Rod Foster. This week's first aid tip. Okay, one of the things I talk about when I teach first aid and CPR, I said to most of the students, I tell people, listen, if you're going to remember anything when you leave here today, I want you to remember shock. Okay, the word shock. So I always tell people, always treat for shock in every situation, and I'll explain. First of all, you have to know what shock is. Now, I ask people what shock is, and a lot of times I get answers like, well, shock is something your body goes through to protect itself. Okay? Or I'll get answers like, it's like when your body's like going through things, you're not even sure if you're around, like you're confused and stuff like that. I think I had shock one time. Okay, that's not bad either. But just so you know, shock isn't something made up. Shock is an actual physiological response based on trauma to the body, okay? So that means that any type of trauma to your body, external or internal, where blood vessels dilate, brain, excessive blood loss to those vital organs. What are the vital organs? Again, the brain, the lungs, the heart, the kidneys, which need sufficient oxygen to be flowing all the time. So, I'm gonna grab something like this, okay? Boom, I got a Windex bottle. Okay, just grab whatever I could right now. So here's the thing. This is the head. This is the feet. Now, based on gravity, right? Blood's flowing. Let's say you get hit, boom, in the chest. Now, you get hit in the chest. So we're always going to use the word MCAP, okay, to start something, right? You do a scene survey, make sure that area is safe. MCAP, right? Check the environment, which we just did, right? We're going to look at the mechanism of the injury. How did it happen? Does anybody know what happened, right? C is casualties. How many casualties involved? Because we may have to do triage, right, of importance. And assistance. The assistance. And then P, which is PPEs, personal protection equipment. Always have your gloves and face shields ready, okay? So now, we noticed that there could be internal bleeding. Now, based on gravity, blood's going to flow down. So here's this. So here's what I always ask people. So I want this blue fluid up here. Well, how do I get it up there? Now, Ken, you could do that. No, you're not turning the casualty. What you want to do is turn the person over, right? So have them lay down. So what happens if you want? Rise the feet a bit. Look where the fluid's going, right? So again, you're leveling off the blood. So if I'm doing a class, boot camp, and somebody's not feeling good, I'll always come back and say, go down on your knee. So if you sit down on your knee, right, and then I'll tell you to lay down, keep your knees up, or lay down, and just stay there until I tell you to get up. Because if you get up too quick, what happens? Boom! Blood pressure drops. And how do you feel when that happens? Dizzy, all of a sudden you're falling and fainting, okay? So again, always treat for shock. Now it can be hemovolemic, which is a type of bleeding, external or internal. It could be cardiogenic, anything to do with the heart. It could be psychogenic, where somebody sees something and it frightens them so badly that blood vessels dilate. And what happens? Blood pressure drops. So if somebody faints, that's a form of shock. So you don't need to know the diagnosis, because again, we don't diagnose, but we treat the signs and symptoms. How are you feeling? You're looking at the person, they look a little pale. That tells you there's a loss of blood. So, hey, I need you to have a seat. Sitting down is a recovery position for shock, right? You don't have to necessarily lay down. You can sit down, okay? Because the heart doesn't have to work so much. So at the end of the day, always think of shock as being a circulatory situation, right? Now again, we always teach ABC, airway, breathing, circulation. Circulation is the area in which shock comes into. Now shock is serious. You could die from shock, insufficient blood supply, okay? You ever heard that person who gets out of a car accident and they're walking around, they're helping everybody, talking, and all of a sudden you find them a mile down the road who've passed out, okay? The other thing is, once you got that person to lay down, what do you want to get? A blanket. Grab a blanket, put the blanket on top of the person. You know why? Because when they lose blood flow, their body temperature changes, right? So again, we want to keep their body temperature. We want to keep them warm. Because what does warm do again? It thins the blood and keeps the blood flowing, okay? So that's what we want to do. So again, shock, treat for shock. If you're going to forget everything I teach you, always remember, treat for shock. That's your first aid tip for this week.